Welcome to another episode of my YouTube channel, onerohodesign.com. In this particular episode, I wanted to talk to you about 7 ways or 7 steps to become a successful freelancer. Now, disclaimer, the 7 steps are fairly easy to follow, but the hard work needs to be put in. So let's start with step number 1. And that's essentially where to find clients, right? Once you become a freelancer. And there are several alternatives online. You can do it the old-fashioned way by networking. If you are like me, who got out of a job in marketing, finding freelance work for web design and email design can be a little difficult because you didn't have that prior experience. Although in my case, I did it for all my previous jobs. I developed those skills on the job. But the alternative to networking is using online platforms for finding work for freelancers. And there are several, actually. There are way too many. And deciding which one to go with, it depends on you, really, and what you're willing to tolerate. Because some of these platforms, they charge you money to be on the platform. Some of them don't charge you, but they charge you commission on the project that you work on. So I'm just going to mention the one that I had an experience with. And I started with a platform called Elance, which at the time it was great. The commission structure for the platform was, fairly fair, and it helped me to find a great deal of clients. But most of them were one-off projects, and eventually I found clients that were steady clients, and those are really hard to find, but once you find them, hold on to them and put out the best work you can, because those are hard to come by. Anyways, this platform eventually became, they got bought out, and it eventually became Upwork, and the commission structure changed, and now you had to pay not only a monthly fee, but you also had to pay the commission. And to this day, we're at December 18, 2019, and the way they work is they charge you for additional connects. If you want to bid on several projects, you run out of connects, you have to buy more. So you essentially have to pay them to find work. And once you find a job and you start working with the client, then you have to pay another percentage of that total revenue on that particular project. So if I were you, I'd do it like I did. Work with clients, find new projects, build your portfolio. That's essentially how I use that platform. You just build a portfolio and have references that people, eventual future clients, could go back to and say, hey, how was the work with this guy? And they could give some positive reviews. And what I did, eventually my clients and I went off the platform because they weren't very happy with that platform either. So we're working directly now. But you could use it as a launching pad for your freelance work. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2, and it's deciding what kind of clients you want to work with. International, local. In my early days, when I started using that platform, I was working with people from all over the world. Europe, Australia, and North America. Never really got a client from South America for some reason, but Australia, Europe, and North America, yeah, no problem. You have to keep in mind, once you start working with these clients, of the time difference. You have to be aware of that. For example, I had several clients from Australia, and they were not difficult. The difficult part was the time difference. So whenever the back and forth for the feedback, it was really a pain, because they're like a good 12-13 hour difference compared to Canada, where I live. So whenever they had edits, they will send them back in their morning, which was around 7 or 8 here. So then they'd have to wait another 13 hours for me to come back with the edits, which is not convenient for either party. But somehow I kept getting those clients until I eventually said no more, because it was just it was frustrating with the time difference. So you have to decide, you want to work locally or with a time difference that it's just tops 3 hours, West Coast, that type of thing. All right, step number 3, and that's savings. And again, these steps are in no particular order, but I'd say savings, it will probably be number 1. And I know when you're first starting out, you don't have any income, so how are you gonna get any savings? Well, as soon as you start getting those projects, make sure you set money aside for 2 things. One, it's a rainy day, because eventually projects, you'll have dry spells. I did, and it could last up to 2 months, 3 months. Worst case scenario, you go 6 months or up to a year without finding any new work. In my particular case, I never found myself in that situation. The longest dry spell was probably a month. But you always have to save money for those times where you're not having any money coming in. And the B point to that would be save money for taxes. When you're first starting out, if this is going to be your side hustle, your accountant will probably report this as additional income. And it's just a line item in your tax return. But if you become a full-time freelancer now, and you are expensing equipment, you're expensing internet and stuff like that, then you have to save money to set aside for taxes. Because when you're working for a company, that gets deducted automatically from your paycheck every 15 days or every month whenever you get your paycheck. But when you're on your own, working as a freelancer, you have to set that money aside, because otherwise you're gonna get a bill for upwards of thousands of dollars at the end of the fiscal year, and if you don't have that money, you're gonna be in trouble. So make sure you set money aside for that. Okay, number 4, it relates to number 3 as well, saving money. It's getting the proper accounting software. When you are a freelancer, there are several options out there, and some of them are separate. Like some software vendors offer you options for invoicing. Make sure you get a proper accounting software, because invoicing is not going to cut it for you. Because at the end of the year, you have to generate reports for your accountant, profit and loss statement, maybe depreciation of your equipment as well. So all that has to be accounted for somewhere, and your accounting software will help you do that automatically, provided that you input the data. It is a pain. I'm going to tell you that right now, because every month you have to input all your expenses, and make sure that that money that you charge, and in my particular case, I have to charge sales tax because of the income bracket that I'm in, and the money that I'm making. Before, I didn't have to when I was first starting out, but now that I passed that threshold, I have to charge sales tax, and that has to be also paid in addition to the income tax. So if you don't keep track of that, if you don't have the proper accounting software, it's going to be a nightmare at the end of the fiscal year, trying to piece all these receipts together. And so make sure you set time aside every month to record your expenses and to put them in the accounting software. And at the end of the fiscal year, all you have to do is generate a report, provide all the receipts for your accountant, and that's it. Very easy. It's a very easy process once you get disciplined enough to put all your expenses in every month, which is what I do. It takes me sometimes, depending on the amount of expenses for a particular month, it can take me about an hour or less to put it all in, but it gives you peace of mind at the end of the fiscal year. As far as recommending accounting software, I can only speak from experience from using 3 particular options. I signed up for trial accounts for all these 3 companies, and I ended up settling on Zoho Books. I also tried QuickBooks. You might have seen the commercials on TV now. And this was 6 years ago when I actually started using QuickBooks initially. And it wasn't a good experience, because the problem is that for QuickBooks, when you use their Freelancer edition, I think they came out with that option after I signed up for their platform. Um, their payment gateway is actually proprietary to QuickBooks. And the problem is that you get a Canadian edition, or you probably get an American or North American or United States edition. You have different tax codes, and their payment gateway is customized for the particular area that you're in. So what happens is that when you issue an invoice for a client outside your country, which was my experience, I issued an invoice for an American client. They couldn't process it because the credit card had to be issued in Canada. And that was quite frustrating, given that as a freelancer working in web design and email design, you're not going to work only with local clients. That's ridiculous. You have to spread your options, right, in order to make some money. So right there and then, I just dropped the software, canceled the account, and moved on to Zoho Books. I also tried FreshBooks, and you might have heard of them as well. And it's a really good platform. It's bare bones, very simple, and I think that's their intent, because it's a platform that is built to creative people who don't want to deal with numbers, accounting, and that sort of thing. So it makes it easy for you to invoice clients and keep track of all those expenses. But the functionality it's a little basic. I found it. I had previous experience working with accounting software, so for me, it made more sense to get something more robust. And Zoho Books was the way to go for me. And they have integrations with Stripe for payment gateway, meaning that I can charge credit cards anywhere in the world for invoices. And you send the invoice, and they can pay online by clicking on a button on the invoice. It's great. So that's accounting software. Zoho Books is my recommendation. Those QuickBooks, I don't know if they've improved ever since I used them 6 years ago, if they still have that issue with credit card payments. And FreshBooks, I would definitely recommend it to any creatives getting started. And people swear by that software, that platform. So if you want to go with that one, be my guest. But in my particular situation, I use Zoho Books, and I'm pretty happy with it. All right, let's move on to number 5, right? And that's hardware and software. When you are first starting out and you are working as a freelancer, you're going to have to pay for a lot of things out of your pocket. Things that you took for granted when you were working in an office, like computers, monitors, the software that you use to create all the stuff that you provide your clients with. That in my case would be Creative Cloud, and it's not cheap, but it's better than trying to buy all those different software packages together. And you never know when you're going to use some of the offerings they have in there. In my case, I never thought I was going to use Premiere Pro, but here I am, recording a video, which I'm going to edit on Premiere Pro later on. So make sure you treat these, the hardware and software, as tools, not toys. I've seen people that on YouTube post videos upgrading their MacBook Pros every time a new one comes out. It's great if you can afford it, but if you want to have cash flow as a freelancer, you better squeeze the crap out of your current equipment. In my particular case, my MacBook Pro is an early edition, refurbished, not even new. I bought it refurbished from the Apple Store in 2015. So it's coming up on 5 years. I can notice that it's getting slow. But like they say, ignorance is bliss. So I'm going to keep squeezing that MacBook until it can no longer process the stuff that I'm working on. And that way, again, you keep cash flow, which is vital for a freelancer and to make a living and pay your bills. Yeah, and so that's for hardware and software. Make sure you use them as tools and not toys. It's not an arms race where the one with the most toys wins. You just need the stuff that you absolutely need to get the work done. All right, let's move on to number 6. And again, it's kind of related to all the stuff that I've said before. It's establishing a budget early on. And as a freelancer just starting out, that might be difficult because you don't know where the money's going to come from. But as the sooner you get into the habit of saving money and making sure that you keep track of your expenses, your overhead, and what's coming in, the more proactive you can be about finding new clients, finding new streams of revenue, and trying to put all that together. So establish a budget, make sure that you know what your expenses are, what the overhead is, and the money that is coming in, and how you can improve on that. And finally, number seven, sorry. Always be looking for new sources of revenue, because you never know when your current client is going to say, you know what, we don't need you anymore. We've decided to move in a different direction. Pretty much like when you're in a company and they tell you that they don't need you anymore. That happens also as a freelancer. For whatever reason, maybe they found someone cheaper, maybe the website that you were maintaining, they feel like they can do it on their own now. Many different reasons. So always be looking for new sources. In my case, I've started exploring affiliate links, which you'll probably see posted on the description of this video as well, and referral links as well for hosting and for marketing automation. And I'm actually getting some income from that. So yeah, always be looking for new sources of revenue and never get complacent. That's a sure recipe for a disaster for a freelancer. And if you follow these steps, I'm not saying you're going to be successful, 100% guaranteed, but it's going to make your life a little bit easier. And in my book, being successful means being able to pay your bills. It's not making millions. It's just making enough money to, make a living. I'm actually making more money now than I did when I was employed by a company, but by the same token, I also have more expenses. So it evens out, and essentially I'm making close to what I was making before, a little bit more, but close to it. And I hope that you find these steps useful, and wish you success in starting a career as a freelancer. Until the next episode, bye.